The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the 6th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a desolate place, and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a desolate place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and ran there on foot from all the towns, and got there ahead of them. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. And when it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place, and the hour is now late. Send them away to go into the surrounding countryside and villages to buy for themselves something to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go and see." And when they had found out, they said, 5, and 2 fish. And he commanded them all to sit down in groups on the green grass. And they sat down in groups by hundreds and by 50s. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing, and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples to set before the people. And he divided the 2 fish among them all. And when they all ate and were satisfied, he then took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces of the bread and of the fish. And those who ate the loaves were 5,000 men. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. What is good leadership? Last week, a so-called king named Herod threw a party for himself. This week, a real king, Jesus, throws a party for everybody. Last week, a so-called King Herod found himself in a relationship with a woman who shouldn't be his wife. This week, our prophet and King Jesus feeds and nourishes his wife like any good shepherd would. Last week, the wife of that King Herod was so upset about prophetic words. This week, the wife of the real leader cried out hungry, running on foot to try to catch the bridegroom one more time. Last week, a party was thrown for this so-called king's birthday. This week, the real king reminds us of the celebration of his birthday, making a mountainside into Bethlehem, the house of bread for everybody. Last week, an erotic dancing damsel in distress decides to show her stuff and floozy her way before some horny guy's drunken, stupid party. And this week, we simply hear how God invited his children at the countryside to receive the wisdom and teaching he offered. Last week, a so-called King Herod ordered that the head of John the Baptist would be chopped off. And this week, the real king orders people to sit down by green pastures and still waters to have their souls restored. Last week, the head of John the Baptist was brought on a platter. This week, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish are brought forward. Last week was a sign of death. This week was a sign of life. Last week, the head of John the Baptist was given to a dancing girl who gave it to her mother. And this week, bread and fish are given to apostles, who in turn give the gift to the people that they may eat and enjoy. Last week, the body of John the Baptist was buried by his disciples. And this week, the true disciples and apostles of Jesus collect the bread and fish in poor people's baskets after all ate and are satisfied. What is true leadership, you might think? True leadership, my friends, is not by a man who calls himself king, who throws a party for his drunken courtiers who are rich and wealthy. But true leadership is by a shepherd who throws a party for the poor people, for the hungry, and for the lame. Last week we saw bad leadership. Woe to that shepherd who scatters the sheep, as the prophet Jeremiah would be apt to say. But this week we see the work of a real shepherd, because real shepherds are real leaders, and real leadership is grounded in compassion. That from the gut, emotion, work, feeling, thought, and activity that leads us beyond ourselves and our own needs, our own desire perhaps for an early retirement with disciples and apostles, to see the needs of God's children and respond to those needs. That's leadership. And that's what Jesus brings today. It is a leadership that would be emblematic of his entire ministry. A leadership where he offers himself on a cross, dying for our sin and rising from the dead in order to save his beloved sheep from sin, death, and the power of the devil. That leadership, in dying and rising for us, is the kind of leadership that shows true compassion contextualized, meeting the needs of people exactly where they are, that they might believe and see the promise that God's word is certain. This Jesus gives the order for the disciples, the apostles, to gather people on the green grass, and there is a mark and reason for that, to be sure. This meal was not just free handouts. This meal pointed them to the Passover, where after the winter rains, the grass would be greenest, and people would anticipate not only the giving of manna, where they would eat and be satisfied, but also they would be given the gift of the bread and the lamb, the body and the blood of the one who would bring them salvation and liberty from their slavery and captivity. It is this kind of leadership, then, that shows us that true good shepherds gather us around the green pastures, lead us beside still waters, and restore our souls, as the psalmist reminded us today. Here, the same Jesus, who had just sent his apostles to teach, was now sending them to teach with words and actions. Compassion that's edible. An edible arrangement, you might say, where God's children can eat and be satisfied. And that kind of giving, my friends, does not end today. That kind of giving continues as Jesus calls us to the waters where he restores our souls, baptizing us into his death and resurrection to give us his body and his blood. As we shall sing in the offering today, he treads the city streets again, and when he does, he makes every place like the Bronx, a Bethlehem, a house of bread. It does become Christmas in July. We're under the tree of the cross. All of God's children get free gifts. The gift of his body and blood, of his life-giving word, of the forgiveness that lasts forever. My dear friends, this is the church's one foundation, Jesus Christ, her Lord. And we are his new creation by water and the word. And as we are, my friends, we follow in the path of true leadership as well. For we who have been far off, as St. Paul reminded the church in Ephesus, have been brought near by the blood of Christ. Physical distancing, social distancing is a thing of the past. Now God is bringing us together again, boldly knowing he will never, ever, ever hurt us in the Lord's Supper when that meal is received in faith. He would never give his children a virus or a disease by simply having his body and blood. We denounce and rebuke every heresy that would make us believe that we should deny ourselves that nourishment that God offers us in the Eucharist. Christmas, my friends, is at every Eucharist. And those who really hunger for God run ahead to make sure they can meet him. My friends, it's your turn to run ahead. For as the apostles were sent to bring good news, God is calling us with compassionate hearts to receive that news and share it as well. We do so as leaders of compassion because we believe and see the promise that God's word is certain. And believing that promise and seeing it alive and well among us, we're not afraid to receive, teach, celebrate, and share Christ Jesus at every Eucharist. My friends, God is giving us a chance to come together at Redeemer at least 5 times a week in safe ways. It's time to get back in the habit. It's time to come out of our caves. It's time to recognize that Jesus has even more for us. It's time to celebrate Christmas in July. And as we do, we shall sing as we do in today's closing hymn, Lord Jesus, you satisfy the hungry heart with gifts of finest wheat. Come give to us, O saving Lord, the bread of life to eat. It's time for the masses to come back to the Mass. And I look forward to seeing you soon at it. That Jesus meets us by the countryside. Don't let it be about parking, or weather, or heat, or virus, or mask, or vaccination, or any other excuse anymore. A highway has been prepared in the wilderness for us. It's a brand new day. For goodness and mercy follow us all the days of our lives. It's high time to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.